Well, after our first round with proteins, it's time to move on to non-enzymatic proteins. Enzymes were no walk in the park, more of a run from the cops. But non-enzymatic proteins are better in some ways and worse in others. This week will be sort of a shorter video because I want to just introduce some of the more basic types of non-enzymatic proteins. Then next week we'll get into a couple different topics involving finishing up proteins and protein isolation. There are a variety of different proteins with varying functions in the body, so to avoid any unnecessary confusion, we'll be breaking it down into different sections. The first section is structural proteins. These support cell structures as well as tissues in the body. Without structural proteins, we would essentially be blobs that can't move or perform any real function, which I'm sure is how some of you live now, but that's beside the point. They are highly repetitive structures that give it a fibrous nature. There are five main ones, so we will touch on the basics of them to prevent any overload. Collagen makes up most of the extracellular matrix of connective tissue, providing strength and flexibility. Elastin similarly makes up the extracellular matrix of connective tissue. However, it is more focused on recoil than collagen. Think about elastic, you heathens. It's not that hard. It's not even close to as complicated as the royal family's relationship with Prince Harry. I'm sure some of you guys have that memorized. Keratins make up intermediate filaments in epithelial cells, mostly contributing to the mechanical integrity of the cell. Acetin makes up microfilaments and thin filaments in myofibrils. These are used for travel of motor proteins. We will get to that later on. Finally, tubulin makes up, you should be able to guess it, microtubules, providing structure and aiding in mitosis. The next section are the motor proteins. They are responsible for muscle contraction and cellular movement. There are only three, so it is marginally less stressful than structural proteins, but I would say slightly more important. Myosin is a motor protein that acts with acetin, working to aid in cellular transport and muscle contraction. Now, muscle contractions can get a little bit complicated, so we'll save that for a different day. I'm talking complicated like cousins in Alabama. Kinesins and dienes are associated with microtubules, both playing roles in cellular transfer as well as having some standalone characteristics. Great. Kinesins play a key role in aligning chromosomes during metaphase and splitting during anaphase. Dienes are involved in the sliding movement of cilia and flagella. You know, the sperm you shoot in your belly button every morning, that kind of flagella. One keynote is that they have opposite polarities, and during cellular transport, kinesins bring vesicles to the positive end of the microtubule, and dienes bring vesicles toward the negative end of the microtubule. The next section of proteins we're going to talk about are the binding proteins, which perform stabilizing functions by binding to molecules, allowing transport. Just like with guys and girls, or guys and guys, or even girls and girls, yeah, I refuse to be canceled that easily. Each binding protein has varying affinity to the molecule of interest. This can vary with concentration or through environmental factors. As always, there are different strokes for different folks, aka three main types, all of which fall under the guise of cell adhesion molecules, CAMs for short, because we love making things short, and all are integral membrane proteins. Cadherins mediate calcium-dependent adhesions. Calcium is important. Tons of biological interactions in the body. So mix in the salad between your meat mountains from Arby's because you need that calcium. Integrins contain membrane-spanning chains that allow communication with extracellular matrix as well as cell signaling. Selectins bind to carbohydrate molecules that project from the cell surface and are important in host defense. Proteins also play a crucial role in immune system function, mainly through antibodies. Antibodies are produced by B cells, and I know what you're asking. What does the B stand for? Boobs, maybe? No, that's not it. Beer, maybe? No, still not it. No, it just stands for bone marrow. They function by neutralizing foreign agents and recruiting other immune cells. They are in the shape of a Y and contain two regions, the antigen binding region at the tip of the Y, and the constant region involved in recruiting of other immune cells at the bottom. Basically like the guy at the bar who picks a fight, goes for a swift kick to the groin, and allows his friends to come in to bail his ass out. The binding of antigens can cause three potential outcomes: neutralization, opsonization, just marking it for destruction. Think of, a scarlet letter for you literature losers, or clumping together to be digested. We're going for a quickie this week, just like a frat boy who's not intoxicated trying to fuck. There's a lot more involved with proteins, and I didn't really feel like getting into ion channels and then protein isolation and making a whole 12-minute video because I know most of you guys don't have that kind of attention span. So for now, we're just going to leave it at that and get ready for next week because it's going to be a fucking doozy. As always, like and subscribe. Feel free to roast me in the comments and join us next week for more on proteins.